There are stories that begin not with a bang, but with the quiet settling of dust on a forgotten memory. This one begins under the relentless Bennu sun, on a roadside where hope had been worn thin as an old wrapper. Ajin Okoro knew the groan of his pickup truck better than he knew his own heartbeat. It was the sound of his life, the strain of hauling cement blocks, the rattle of a suspension that had seen too many unpaved roads, the weary sigh of an engine that, like him, was doing its best with what it had. He was a contractor, a title that sounded grander than the reality of wrestling invoices and chasing payments in the bustling town of Makurdi. At 28, he felt the weight of his family's expectations pressed down on him, as heavy as the afternoon heat. He was heading back to his small rented yard when he saw her. A woman sat by the roadside, her knees drawn up to her chest, a dusty bowl resting beside her. It was a common enough sight, another face in the tapestry of hardship that lined the city's edges. But as his truck slowed for a jam of honking keki napeps, his eyes locked on her face and the air in his lungs turned to stone. The grime and weariness couldn't hide it. It was Amara. Amara Chukwuma. The name echoed from a different lifetime, a time of shared desks and whispered jokes in a classroom that smelled of chalk and harmattan dust. She had been his first love, a girl with eyes that held the spark of 1,000 brilliant ideas and a laugh that could make the world feel right. They had been inseparable until Shola, his older, more ambitious brother, had swept in. Shola, with his sharp suits and sharper tongue, had wooed her, only to discard her months later, deeming her family too poor, her dreams too small for his grand ascent. Ajin hadn't seen her since. Now here she was, a beggar. A hot flush of shame, sharp and unwelcome, prickled his skin. He glanced at the rearview mirror, his mind racing. What if someone he knew saw him, a client, a rival contractor, the son of the Okoro family, seen talking to a destitute woman who was once tied to his name, his brother's name? The gossip would spread through their village like wildfire. He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white, and pressed his foot on the accelerator. He would drive on, he had to. But his truck, as if sensing his inner turmoil, sputtered and died. The Kiki driver behind him laid on his horn, a long, impatient bleat. Trapped. Amara looked up, her gaze sweeping past the chaos until it landed on him. There was no flicker of recognition, only a deep, profound exhaustion that seemed to swallow the light. She slowly rose and walked towards the line of stalled vehicles, her worn slippers scuffing the red earth. She approached the car in front of his, her voice a low, raspy plea. "Anything for a sister, please. Just to buy food." The window rolled up, she moved to the next, and then she was at his window, her hand resting gently on the door. It was only then, up close, that her eyes met his and a jolt went through her. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. The years melted away, and for a heart-stopping second, they were just Ajin and Amara again. Two teenagers under a mango tree, sharing a stolen meat pie. "Ajin," she whispered, her voice cracking. He couldn't speak. The shame he felt was now a bitter cocktail, mixed with a sorrow so deep it ached in his bones. This was Amara, the girl who could solve any maths problem, who dreamed of building machines that would change Nigeria. What had the world done to her? Could you give me some money?" she asked, her pride a fragile, broken thing. "I haven't eaten. I just need enough for some gari and transport back to the shelter." He fumbled in his pocket, his hands trembling. He pulled out a wad of naira notes, crumpled and warm from his pocket. It was the money he'd just been paid for a small repair job, meant for fuel and his own dinner. Without counting, he peeled off several notes and pressed them into her hand. "Take this," he managed, his voice thick. "This is too much," she said, looking at the amount. "Just take it," he insisted, finally turning the key in the ignition. The engine, taking pity on him, roared back to life. He didn't wait for her thanks. He couldn't bear to see the gratitude, or the pity, or whatever it was in her eyes. He put the truck in gear and pulled away, leaving Amara standing in a cloud of dust, a forgotten chapter of his life, holding his money in her calloused hand. As he drove, he didn't feel relief, only a hollowing emptiness. He had helped her, yes, but he had also run from her. He had run from the shame of her circumstances and, in doing so, from a part of himself he didn't want to face. Back in her small hidden room in a part of town the wealthy never saw, Amara Chukwuma carefully smoothed the wrinkled Naira notes. She placed them beside a sleek, encrypted satellite phone and a laptop that held the schematics for a revolutionary new electric engine. A faint, sad smile touched her lips. She had found kindness in Ajin's eyes, yes, but it was tangled with shame. It was a start. Her experiment, her quest to find a heart unswayed by the glitter of wealth, was far from over. The call came 2 days later, just as Ajin was trying to figure out how to stretch his last few thousand naira until his next payment. It was his mother, her voice a frantic whirlwind of village news and maternal commands. "Ajin, my son, are you listening? Your auntie's daughter just got married to a man who works in the oil company. A big wedding. And you, what are you doing? Still driving that broken truck around Makurdi?" "Mama, I'm working," he said, sighing. "Working is not enough. I am turning 50 in 1 week." 50? The whole village will be there. Your brother Shola is coming from Lagos with his wife. They say she is now a big importer of lace. Everyone will be asking, where is Ajin's wife? Is he going to die alone? "Mama, please." "No, please. I will not have it. You must bring a girl home for my birthday. I don't care who she is, just bring someone. Let them see that my second son is not a lost cause. Do you hear me, Ajin? Bring a girlfriend, or don't bother coming home at all." The line went dead, leaving a silence that buzzed with impossibility. A girlfriend? Where was he supposed to find a girlfriend in 1 week? The women he met were either unimpressed by his humble contracting business or had expectations he couldn't possibly meet. He sank onto his worn sofa, his head in his hands. His mother's 50th birthday was the biggest event of the year. To show up alone after his mother's ultimatum was unthinkable. To not show up was a declaration of war. His mind, desperate for a solution, flashed back to the roadside, to a pair of weary eyes that still held a flicker of the old fire. Amara. The idea was insane, utterly, completely mad, but the more he thought about it, the more it took root. She needed money. He needed a girlfriend. It would be a simple transaction, a business arrangement. He would pay her to act the part for 1 weekend. She could have a few good meals, and he could save face with his family. After the party, they would go their separate ways, their brief, strange reunion a secret between them. It took him a full day to find her again, scouring the junctions and markets where the city's forgotten people gathered. He finally saw her near the Wurukum market, sharing a small piece of roasted yam with a child. His heart twisted. He parked his truck a little way off and approached her on foot. "Amara," he said softly. She looked up, her expression guarded. "Ajin, you came back." I have a proposal for you," he said, the words feeling clumsy and foolish in his mouth. "It's a job." He explained the situation, the pressure from his mother, the upcoming birthday banquet. He laid out the terms as if he were negotiating a contract for sand and gravel. "I'll pay you 20,000 naira for the weekend. You'll just have to pretend to be my girlfriend. We'll get you a nice dress, some shoes. You won't have to want for anything." Amara listened, her face unreadable. He expected her to be offended, to throw the offer back in his face. Instead, she was silent for a long moment, her gaze distant, as if she were weighing options he couldn't see. "Your mother's birthday," she said finally. "In the village?" "Yes, Gwere West." A flicker of something, nostalgia perhaps, or sadness, crossed her features. "I haven't been back in years." She looked at her worn clothes, then back at him. "You want me, like this, to meet your family?" "We'll take care of that," he said quickly. "I'll take you to a hotel to clean up. We'll go to the market, buy everything you need. I'll even get a gift for you to give my mother. And all I have to do is pretend to love you for a weekend?" A ghost of her old, teasing smile appeared, and for a second, his breath caught. "You don't have to love me," he clarified a little too quickly. "Just like me. Hold my hand, smile at my mother's stories. Tell them you run a small business in town, a little boutique or something. plausible, simple. A boutique, she mused. She looked at the child beside her who had finished the yam and was now watching them with wide, curious eyes. Okay, Ajin Okoro. It's a deal. The relief that flooded him was so immense it made him dizzy. Good, it's good, he stammered. The party is on Saturday. We'll leave tomorrow morning. It will give us time to prepare. As they walked towards his truck, he felt a strange sense of unreality. He was hiring his ex-girlfriend, a woman he had just found begging on the street, to lie to his entire family. It was the most desperate, reckless thing he had ever done. Amara, for her part, felt a different kind of thrill. The stage was set, the characters were assembled. She was about to return to the place where her old life had ended, and she was curious to see what truths this charade might reveal. She pulled out her satellite phone and sent a quick, encrypted message to her head of security. Prepare a birthday gift, value 50 million naira, deliver to the Okoro family celebration in Gwere West on Saturday. My name is not to be mentioned. It is from a secret admirer of their son, Ajin. She smiled. The game was about to become very, very interesting. The village of Gwere West welcomed them with the familiar embrace of wood smoke and the rich scent of damp earth. Goats scattered as Ajin's truck rattled down the path to his family compound, a collection of modest houses painted in fading shades of ochre and blue. Children stopped their games to stare, their whispers following the truck like a trail of leaves. Amara, transformed, sat beside him, dressed in a simple but elegant Ankara gown he had bought her, her hair intricately braided and her face glowing. She looked nothing like the woman from the roadside. She looked like the Amara he remembered, only with a quiet poise that hadn't been there before. He had taken her to a small, clean hotel, let her shower and rest, and then they had gone shopping. The ease with which she picked out the perfect outfit and a thoughtful gift for his mother, a beautiful set of porcelain serving dishes, had surprised him. She had a grace that poverty had not managed to extinguish. His mother, a woman whose joy and worry were etched onto her face in equal measure, rushed out to meet them, her wrapper tied tight around her waist. Ajin, you've come. Her eyes immediately fell on Amara, and a wide, approving smile spread across her face. And you've brought a friend. Welcome, my daughter, welcome. Mama, this is Amara, Ajin said, his heart thumping. My girlfriend. Ayan, a girlfriend. God is good, his mother exclaimed, pulling Amara into a warm hug. Look at you. You are as beautiful as the morning sun. Come inside. Come inside. The initial reception was a dream. His father greeted Amara with a respectful nod. His aunties cooed over her beauty and her polite demeanor. She presented the gift to his mother, who was so thrilled with the serving dishes that she immediately declared Amara had good home training. For a moment, Ajin allowed himself to relax. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. Then the guests began to arrive, and with them the trouble he had dreaded. The first to cast a stone was Molly Nwosu, the adopted daughter of his godmother. Molly had grown up with a sense of ownership over Ajin, convinced that a childhood promise he barely remembered was a betrothal. She arrived dressed in expensive lace, her face a mask of false sweetness. Ajin, dear, she chirped, ignoring Amara completely. She turned to his mother. Godmother, you look so beautiful on your birthday. I was just telling my mother that it's time Ajin and I settled down, as you always wished. Ah, Molly, Ajin's mother said, suddenly flustered. Ajin has brought a friend. Molly's eyes finally landed on Amara, narrowing with disdain. A friend? Is that what she is? I saw you two arrive, on that tractor you call a truck. If she is your girlfriend, Ajin, she must not be used to much. Before Ajin could respond, Amara gave a serene smile. A vehicle's purpose is to get you where you need to go. It succeeded. It's lovely to meet you. The polite dismissal only seemed to fuel Molly's anger, but the real explosion came with the arrival of his brother. Shola Okoro and his wife, Funke, swept into the compound like visiting royalty. Shola, now a successful project manager in Lagos, exuded an aura of condescending success. Funke was draped in gold jewelry, her nose perpetually tilted in the air. Mama! Happy birthday, Shola boomed, handing his mother a thick envelope. He clapped Ajin on the back. Still playing with mud and bricks, little brother? His eyes scanned the crowd, and then they froze. He stared at Amara, his jaw slack with disbelief. Funky followed his gaze, and her perfectly made-up face twisted into a sneer of recognition. "What is she doing here?" Funky hissed, loud enough for half the compound to hear. Shola strode over to Amara, his eyes blazing with a mixture of shock and fury. "Amara, you have the nerve to show your face in my family's home." The music seemed to falter, conversations died down, all eyes were on them. Arjun stepped forward, placing a protective hand on Amara's arm. "Shola, she is with me." "With you?" Shola let out a bark of laughter, a cruel, ugly sound. "Don't tell me. Arjun, are you so desperate that you picked up my leftovers?" He turned to the crowd of relatives. "Do you all know who this woman is? This is the girl I was dating years ago. The one I left because she was a poor, useless village girl with no future. Her family had nothing. I saw her in Lagos last year, working as a cleaner in a hotel." Funky chimed in, her voice dripping with venom. "A cleaner? Shola, darling, you are too kind. I heard she lost even that job. My friend saw her on the streets begging. This woman is a common beggar." The words hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. A collective gasp went through the crowd. His mother's face went pale with horror. Molly looked triumphant, a smug smile playing on her lips. "A beggar," Arjun's mother whispered, looking from Amara to Arjun, her eyes filled with betrayal. "Arjun, what is this?" "It's a lie," Arjun said, his voice shaking with a rage he hadn't felt in years. But even as he said it, he knew how it looked. He had arrived with her in a beat-up truck. She had no family to speak of. It all fit. "A lie," Molly scoffed. "Arjun, we all know you've been struggling. It's so sad. You couldn't find a proper girl, so you paid this actress to come and deceive your own mother? How much did she cost you? 200 naira a day." The relatives began to murmur, their earlier admiration for Amara turning to scorn. They looked at her beautiful gown and saw a costume. They looked at her polite smile and saw a lie. Through it all, Amara remained impossibly calm. She hadn't flinched, hadn't cried out, hadn't denied anything. She simply stood there, her poise a silent, unbreakable shield. She looked at Shola, then at Funke, and finally at the sea of accusing faces. "You believe you know me," she said, her voice quiet but carrying across the hushed compound. "You see what you want to see. A poor girl, a beggar, a failure." She turned her gaze to Arjun's mother. "Mama, I am sorry your celebration has been disturbed. But sometimes before you can celebrate, you must first sweep the dirt out of the house." Her words, cryptic and bold, only enraged them further. They saw it as the last-ditch effort of a cornered liar. The mockery intensified, a chorus of derision aimed at the woman who had dared to step into their world, and at the fool who had brought her there. Arjun stood beside her, his heart a battlefield of shame, fury, and a strange burgeoning admiration for the woman who faced down his entire family without shedding a tear. The party was in ruins, but the real storm had only just begun. The chaos in the compound had reached a fever pitch when a commotion at the gate drew everyone's attention. A sleek, black Lexus SUV, a car so out of place in the village it might as well have been a spaceship, was trying to navigate the narrow path, but its way was blocked by an old, beat-up Peugeot belonging to one of the uncles. The driver, a man in a crisp uniform, got out and spoke respectfully to the car's owner. "Ogre, please, can you move your car? It is blocking the road." "The keys are not with me," the uncle shouted back, deep in an argument with a cousin. "My son took them to the next village. It cannot be moved." The driver of the Lexus looked stressed. He was clearly on an important errand. The owner of the car, a wealthy-looking man who was a guest of another family, began to shout, "I must get through. If this car is not moved in 3 minutes, I will have it smashed." Panic rippled through the party. Smashing a car on Mama Okoro's 50th birthday would be a terrible omen. Arjun's father pleaded for calm, but the man was furious. "What can we do?" Arjun's mother lamented, wringing her hands. Molly, ever the show-off, sauntered forward. "My father is a mine owner. I know how to drive. But without the keys, what can anyone do?" It was then that Amara stepped out of the crowd. "I will move it," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. Shola scoffed. You? You can't even afford a bicycle. Stop making a fool of yourself. This lunatic will get us all into trouble, Funke shrieked. Drive her out of the village. Ignoring them, Amara walked calmly to the Peugeot. She examined the driver's side door for a moment, then with a speed and precision that was baffling, she used a small, thin piece of metal she produced from her purse to click the lock open. The crowd gasped. She slipped into the driver's seat. A moment later, they saw her hands move deftly beneath the steering column. The engine roared to life. With a skill that defied belief, she maneuvered the old car into a tight space off the path, clearing the road in less than a minute. She switched off the engine, got out, and closed the door as if she had done nothing more remarkable than pour a glass of water. The compound was silent. The owner of the Lexus stared at her, his jaw agape. That was a stunt. How did you do that? Amara simply smiled. I'm good with cars. The momentary admiration quickly curdled into suspicion. A car thief, Molly shouted, pointing a dramatic finger. That is how she did it. She's a professional car thief. No wonder she has no money. She is a criminal. The accusation stuck. It explained everything, her mysterious skills, her lack of a verifiable background. The villagers, who had been momentarily impressed, now looked at her with fear and hostility. Arjun, look at the trouble you have brought upon this family, his father thundered. Arjun stood his ground, though his own mind was reeling. She was helping, you all saw it. The road was blocked and she cleared it. By breaking into a man's car, Shola yelled. She is a disgrace. Just as the argument was about to escalate again, a low rumble was heard from the main road. It grew louder, a purr of powerful, well-tuned engines. One by one, a convoy of vehicles appeared at the head of the path, led by a gleaming black G-Wagon, followed by 2 Range Rovers and another Lexus. They were polished to a mirror shine, their presence an overwhelming statement of wealth and power that silenced the entire village. The cars pulled to a stop. Men in sharp dark suits emerged, their faces professional and serious. The door of the G-Wagon opened and a man stepped out. He was older, with a commanding presence, his white agbada embroidered with threads of pure gold. Several of the village elders gasped. It is Chief Delawang, one of them whispered in awe, the coal tycoon from Enugu. What is he doing here? Chief Wang was a legend, one of the most powerful and respected men in all of eastern Nigeria. His wealth was immense, his influence untouchable. He strode into the compound, his entourage following silently behind him. The villagers and the Okoro family were frozen, unsure of what was happening. Was he the angry owner of the blocked Lexus? Had he come to punish them? Chief Wang's eyes scanned the crowd, passing over the stunned faces until they rested on Amara. He walked directly to her, past Shola and Funke, past Ajin's parents, past everyone. He stopped a few feet before her, and then, to the absolute earth-shattering shock of every single person present, he bowed his head in a deep, reverent gesture of respect. Chairperson, he said, his voice deep and resonant, I was told you were in the area. I came to pay my respects. The world seemed to stop spinning. Chairperson. He had called this beggar, this car thief, chairperson. Shola and Funke exchanged confused glances. Molly's smug expression had vanished, replaced by a slack-jawed bewilderment. Amara looked at the chief, a warm smile finally breaking through her calm facade. Chief Wang, it is good to see you. I trust business is well? Business is booming, thanks to your guidance, he replied. He turned to his aide, who stepped forward with a large, beautifully wrapped box. A small token for the esteemed mother of the Okoro family on her 50th birthday. Compliments of the chairperson's well-wisher. The aide presented the box to Ajin's mother, who took it with trembling hands. Chief Wang then turned to the stunned crowd, his eyes lingering for a moment on Shola and Funke. I hear some of you have been entertaining the chairperson. You should know, this woman you have been mocking is the reason men like me can build empires. The seed capital for my first mine, the technology that revolutionized our extraction process, it all came from her vision. The support for countless businesses across this nation, including, he paused looking directly at Funke, A certain up-and-coming lace import business in Lagos flows from her generosity. Funk's face went ashen. The gold jewelry around her neck suddenly seemed like a lead weight. Shola looked as if he had been struck by lightning. "This woman," Chief Wang continued, his voice ringing with power, "is the quiet force that has lifted up so many. You were in the presence of greatness, and you were too blind to see it." The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the cawing of a distant crow. The villagers, the relatives, the entire Okoro family stared at Amara, the woman they had scorned, and finally began to see the truth. Not a beggar, not a thief, but a queen in disguise. The truth, when it was finally laid bare, was more staggering than anyone could have imagined. Standing in the middle of the compound, with Chief Del Wang by her side like a loyal general, Amara Chukwuma finally dropped the last veil of her disguise. "My name is Amara Chukwuma," she began, her voice calm but infused with an authority that no one dared to question. "Some of you remember me as a girl from this village. Shola remembers me as the poor girlfriend he dumped. Funky remembers me as a beggar. But the world knows me by another name." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "They call me the car goddess." A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. The car goddess was a figure of modern legend in Nigeria. A mysterious, brilliant engineer who had appeared out of nowhere, founded the Future Group and built it into the country's leading automobile and technology conglomerate. She was famous for her unparalleled driving skills and for designing the Luzra, a luxury car built in Nigeria that now competed with the best in the world. She was a national hero, a symbol of Nigerian innovation and power. But her identity was a closely guarded secret. She was known to appear at public events wearing a golden mask, adding to her mystique. "Future Group is my company," Amara stated simply. "The Luzra is my creation. Chief Wang is a man I chose to support because I saw in him a spirit of industry. And Shola," she turned her piercing gaze on her ex-boyfriend, who was now trembling, "the engineering firm that gave you your first major contract in Lagos. It is a subsidiary of my company. The loans that financed Funky's import business, they were guaranteed by my private foundation." She let that sink in. Their success, the very foundation of their arrogance and the reason they had looked down on her, was built on her invisible charity. It was a kindness they had been utterly unworthy of. "I became tired of a world where a person's worth is measured by their bank account," Amara continued, her voice softening with a hint of sorrow. "I was surrounded by people who wanted my money, my influence, my power. I wanted to find someone who could see the person, not the chairperson. So I left it all behind, temporarily. I put on old clothes and sat by the roadside to see who still had kindness left in their hearts, to see who would offer a hand to someone they believed had nothing." Her eyes swept over the crowd of shamed faces. Her relatives, the villagers, Molly, all of them had failed her test. They had seen only rags and assumed a person of no value. Shola and Funky were utterly broken. The edifice of their pride had crumbled into dust. They had been ridiculing their own secret benefactor. Funky stumbled forward, falling to her knees. "Chairperson, madam, please forgive us," she sobbed. "We didn't know. We were fools." Shola, his face a mess of sweat and shame, could only stammer, "Amara, I am so sorry." Amara looked down at them, not with anger, but with a quiet finality. "There is nothing to forgive. You have shown me who you are. And I believe you. From this day forward, all contracts, loans and support from Future Group and its affiliates to you and your businesses are terminated. You built your house on a foundation of my kindness. Now you will see how it stands on its own." She did not raise her voice, but her words were a death sentence to their careers. She then turned away from them, dismissing them from her life as thoroughly as Shola had once dismissed her. Her eyes searched the crowd and found Ajin. He was standing apart from his family, his face a canvas of shock, confusion and dawning wonder. He had defended her when he thought she was a penniless beggar. He had stood by her against his entire family, not for any potential gain, but because it was the right thing to do. He had shown kindness without expecting a reward. Amara walked towards him, her steps sure and graceful. The entire village watched, holding its breath. She stopped in front of him, the powerful CEO and the humble contractor, two worlds colliding. You, she said softly, her voice for him alone. You saw a woman in need, and you helped. You saw your family attack me, and you defended me. You did not know who I was, Ajin, but you showed me who you are. Tears welled in her eyes, real and shining. I have been searching for a long time, not for a business partner, not for an employee, but for a home, for a heart that is true. She reached out and took his hand, her touch sending a jolt through him. I am tired of being the car goddess, she whispered. I just want to be Amara, and I want to be with you. I told you I would repay your kindness. My proposal is this. Let me stay by your side. For life. Ajin stared at her, his mind struggling to comprehend the beautiful, impossible truth. This incredible woman, this builder of empires, this national icon, was choosing him. Not because of wealth or status, but because of a few crumpled Naira notes given on a dusty roadside. He looked at his shamed family, at the humbled tycoon, at the luxury cars, and then back into Amara's eyes. And in them he saw his future. He saw a life not of hauling cement, but of building dreams alongside the most remarkable woman he had ever known. A slow smile spread across his face, the first genuine, unburdened smile he had worn all day. Yes, he said, his voice firm and clear. Yes, Amara, I would like that. As the sun began to set, casting long golden shadows across the village, the shame-faced relatives and gossiping neighbors quietly dispersed, their celebration turned to a lesson in humility. Shola and Funke were left to face the ruins of their pride, while Ajin Okoro, the contractor from Makurdi, stood hand in hand with the car goddess, his future suddenly as bright and boundless as the Nigerian sky.